Zimbabwe is at crossroads. Politically, the country is simmering in a crisis.
The law is being used to do the persecution, which is unacceptable, which shows that the Zimbabwe authorities are not committed to respecting the rule of law, free expression, and human rights generally.
Economically, ordinary people are struggling. Inflation is high. Unemployment and poverty are taking a toll on the general populace. The COVID-19 pandemic has made life worse.
As far as provision of social services is concerned, the government of Zimbabwe has failed its people dismally. There is no reliable and adequate public transportation system. Government has failed to even provide social protection to the many vulnerable people in communities. In addition to that, government has used the COVID-19 curfew as a leeway to unleash state security agents into the streets to harass, intimidate, and assault people. Right now, people are living in fear of their very own government.
The health sector is on its knees. Health workers have been on strike for a very long time.
We are saying as nurses we don't have money. Maria makatipa itikwaniri. Turukurarama tichitambura. I come kuward ndichizoshanda nemurwere ndisina kudya ndasiya vana kumba. Already zvakadaro it means that inini nditori a hazard to that very patient I'm saying I'm nursing.
Just like other civil servants, they are demanding a living wage. Following years of neglect, public hospitals are in a derelict state. The unabated economic meltdown has increased the levels of inequalities. The poor are getting poorer, and the privileged rich are getting richer. Corruption and nepotism has continued right at the highest level of government.
But also the justice process has been corrupted because these activists, anti-corruption activists, these journalists like Obo Chingono, have been persecuted for exposing corruption, for doing their work.
I've been denied bail until they said I should come back on the 7th of August for the fact of reporting what the organizers of the 31st July protest had said. Journalism has been criminalized.
State and judicial capture has eroded public confidence in public and key independent institutions.
I was arrested on political grounds. I could hardly get assistance because almost everyone at the prison, from the prison officers to the inmates, they were afraid of even interacting with me or even seen close to me. So I couldn't get assistance where I wanted it. You know, I was arrested while I was sick, so I had medication which I was told that I must take that medication after having a meal. But I couldn't get the meal because no one wanted to assist me.
We must also believe that Chikrup maximum prison is a prison which all Zimbabweans are confined in. The conditions that are there in the prison are also the conditions the people of Zimbabwe are suffering. So I define Zimbabwe as the big Chikrubi maximum prison, where the people are currently under incarceration and also imprisonment because of the dictatorship that is governing our country. We know that the basic civil liberties and civil rights of our people in this country have been taken away. And the fight for civil rights is something that is very fundamental. It's not criminal for us to say that we need a government that is accountable to the people that they are governing.
Government has openly disrespected the tenets of constitutionalism. There has a move to amend the constitution to give President Mnangagwa more power to take away judicial independence and whittle down the role of parliament. Shows the regime is fast tracking towards a one-party state.
The bad apples that have attempted to divide our people and to weaken our systems will be flushed out, and machinations by destructive terrorist opposition groupings.
The MDC is a terrorist organization, which in fact is what they are, along with their Trojan horses like the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, the Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition, and others, which depend on foreign funding to make their anti-people activities.
Critics have at best been arrested and at worst been abducted.
And then omnyoba sithi lo ucabantu maybe siyadlala la wabe sethatha ke ingqondo wabe sedabula ibrayam wabe sedabula leginya wabe sedabula lependi ngengqondo yakhe la and then basiqalisa kunjalo.
Hayi thuda ukuthi muyimbe shomanga muchita thuda ukuthi muyimbe mumache kusvika mapedza shungu. Thuda kuti mumache uchingoti ukamira kumacha uro anzi machai muchiimba nziyo dzenyu tapedza kumacha kuti uri kunzwa weitiitira ipapo ndikasiti wewesinetsai.
It's okay.
Ndiyazi imimi ndimi kaire makashinga muna zvitwaskana makashinga sisiya chimubasa.
The abductions have happened in a very systematic fashion. For example, in one of the incidents where Tawanda Mchaiwa, an activist, is abducted, the abductors, who have since been exposed as the Ferret Team, a unit made up of the police, the Central Intelligence, the Army, as well as the military intelligence, used a vehicle hired from a ZANU-PF-linked company, Impala Car Rental. Impala have since not acquitted themselves well after failing to expose the details of where the vehicle went during the time it was used by the abductors. Instead, a student leader, Takuz Gongadziwore, who led a demonstration at Impala Car Rental demanding that they release the information of the vehicle, was arrested, and at the time of the production of this documentary, he is wallowing in prison. This exposes the extent to which the state is prepared to go to just stifle human rights in Zimbabwe.
All this has heightened since April, when the country went into a COVID-19 lockdown. The state has used the security apparatus at its disposal to clamp down on civil liberties. Using COVID-19 as a convenient excuse, government has deployed the military into the streets.
It is said that the state is using the pandemic to clamp down on women who choose to fight for human rights. We have seen women being arbitrarily arrested, tortured, abducted, and sexually abused only for calling for rights for everyone and an improvement of the socio-economic and political environment in Zimbabwe.
President Mnangagwa and his regime, they are doing what they know best. That is to rule by force, to rule through repression, to rule through brutality. They rely on rule by law instead of rule of law. That's what they know, that's what they've done. So we were not surprised after the elections in 2018, people being gunned here down in the streets of Harare. Then we had in January, the following year, which was 2019, some demonstration, people unhappy with the fuel prices, then expressing themselves. Basic democratic rights in election And what they end was more brutality, more shootings, more abductions, more killings. And that has been the trend from then to now. We are in a period right now where human rights, political and civil society activists, they are either been abducted, they've been arrested, they are being prosecuted, some have got bail, they are out, some are still in detention. And what is the reason? Simply because on July 31, they wanted to express themselves peacefully.
The situation is worse because all those that have faced this brutality of the state, either by the police or the soldiers, cannot get justice.
Internationally, Zimbabwe is more isolated. Government continues to ignore the calls by SADC, UN, AU, and other countries to respect basic freedoms.
In plain English, there is a crisis in Zimbabwe, not just challenges, with extreme difficulty, all man-made, and growing in intensity and long-lasting.
We have to be frank and honest about it. If we are to help the situation, we have to be frank and honest about it. In the ANC's view, yes, there is a political crisis in Zimbabwe.
There is no crisis in Zimbabwe.
More than ever before, the hope of a better Zimbabwe has all but vanished.
It's very worrying that a high number of activists have been either jailed, abducted, arrested, tortured since November 2017. And this is a trend that is very much worrying. This is a trend that is happening when everyone thought that Zimbabwe was now moving in a different path.
And it will take a lot for the country to move out of the crisis. Civil society actors have continued to provide alternative voice beyond the opposition political society, but the state has continued to victimize players in the civil society. Zimbabweans are in essence under attack from their own government.
The Constitution in Section 59 allows Zimbabweans to demonstrate and petition as long as that is being done peacefully. And my advice is that I think people need to be allowed to be able to exercise that right.
We appeal to regional bodies like SADC to rein in on ZANU-PF, to rein in on the government so that they stop the human rights violations, they stop the abductions, they stop the arrests, and they stop the jailing of activists.
There's need for a national dialogue, an all-stakeholder national dialogue. And that all-stakeholder national dialogue should come up with a clear roadmap to the full democratization of the Zimbabwean and the return of Zimbabwe to non-compliance. And this return of Zimbabwe to non-compliance and full democratization, it means one, the removal of the military in Zimbabwean politics. Number two, we need to make sure that there's institutional reform. For the institutions need to be reformed, citizens need to have confidence in the institutions that are supposed to protect them. The judiciary needs to be reformed. Other institutions that are responsible for the protection of citizens need to play that important role. The Chapter 12 commissions are not playing their role effectively because they are captured. The judiciary is captured. No one is particularly playing the important role that's supposed to play in a democracy because of the fear of the military, the fear of the state. And we think as a crisis in the coalition that needs to be dealt with. A social contract between the citizens and the state is irretrievably broken down in Zimbabwe, and that's why we are calling for a dialogue to renew the social contract, and there have to be conditions that are conducive for the renewal of the social contract in Zimbabwe. And for this to take place, there has to be mediation, a role that should be played by SADC, guaranteed by the African Union.
In light of this, there's an urgent need for process facilitation through mobilizing critical democratic forces for joint action to get Zimbabwe back onto the path to democracy and economic reform.